Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Down the Tee Tennis podcast, where today we'll be bringing you our men's preview and predictions for Wimbledon in 2022. Really looking forward to it. I think tomorrow we'll probably be bringing you the women's predictions, so make sure you look out for that. But first of all, Ewan, we talk about it a lot. Grass court season is, well, coming to an end, really, with Wimbledon. But how much have you enjoyed it, and how much are you looking forward to this tournament?
Yeah, absolutely. Very much enjoyed it so far. I mean, obviously, like you say, it's always short, but always enjoyable. Had the 3 weeks that we've had so far. It's been some really great tennis played already, and very much looking forward to getting into Wimbledon. It's always fantastic this time of the season, really in general, going from the French Open into Wimbledon. The short gap between the two middle Grand Slams of the year. So very much looking forward to that, and what we've got left of the grass. I think it's going to be a really interesting Wimbledon.
Always a great test for the players as well to go straight from the French Open into Wimbledon on the grass. Looking through the winners of the main tour grass court tournaments so far this year, in Rosmalen in the Netherlands, home winner and a shot winner, Tim van Rijthoven beat Daniil Medvedev in the final there. That was a crazy story, actually, and I'm sure we'll talk about him more later on. In Stuttgart, Matteo Berrettini beat Andy Murray in the final in 3 sets. Great to see Murray in an ATP Tour final for the second time this year. But some worry at the end for us Brits. In Halle, Hubert Hurkacz beat Daniil Medvedev, who's still searching for a main tour title and obviously won't get it at Wimbledon in 2022. And in Queens, Matteo Berrettini beat Filip Krajinovic in the final in 2 sets. So Berrettini once again showing strong form on the grass. We're recording this on the Saturday morning, so we haven't yet had the finals at Eastbourne and Mallorca, where we've got Maxime Cressy playing against Taylor Fritz and also Roberto Bautista Agut playing against Stefanos Tsitsipas. So I'm sure by the time this is out, you'll know the results of those. But looking through the grass court season so far, a lot of familiarity, Matteo Berrettini picking up 2 titles, but Timothy van Rijthoven, and, seeing RBA and Stefanos Tsitsipas back in grass finals. Bautista Agut is a great grass player, but, maybe has slipped down his thoughts a bit. Stefanos has had some struggles on the grass in the past. So, so some decent stories in there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's been really interesting so far. As you say, a mix between players we've seen have great success on the grass before, like Berrettini pretty much picked up where he left off last year and in 2019, where he won titles, and to win both the titles he's played so far, it's just re-emerged as a real contender at the All England club, as we'll come on to. And Van Rijthoven really a surprise winner as a wild card in Rosmalen outside the top 200, and a player I had heard of but hadn't seen play much really. I'd just seen his name kind of on the Challenger Tour. So I mean, a fantastic win for him there on home soil. Had some fantastic results, being the likes of Medvedev, Taylor Fritz, Auger Aliassime. I mean, it was one of the more unlikely title runs I think we've seen on the ATP Tour in a long time. So it was great to see that as well, and also the tournaments, as you mentioned, this week in Eastbourne and Mallorca, which will come to a conclusion today with some interesting stories there as well, with Fritz and Cressy in the final in Mallorca. Cressy, it's been good to see him bounce back to form on the grass, the surface you'd expect him to do well on. So it's going to be exciting to see how he does potentially at Wimbledon as well, and also, as you mentioned, Tsitsipas having a bit of a breakthrough on the grass. It'll be good to see him against Bautista today. Should be a good final.
Yeah. Echo a lot of that. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited by Tim van Rijthoven. I'm thinking it could just be a flash in the pan. It could obviously just be a flash in the pan. But also, what if he turns up and has a strong Wimbledon? I mean, we'll get onto that when we pick through the draw and see his section. But that would be insane to see a player at his age, where he's like in his mid-20s. You weren't really expecting him to have a breakout, to just all of a sudden kind of. The problem here is he doesn't break into the top 100 with a strong Wimbledon because, and we'll get onto this, the Russian and Belarusian ban, and obviously the absence of ATP points. We've covered this topic to death, really. We've done it in previous podcasts, at the end of the French Open and stuff. But do you know what? It's also a real shame for me for the British players, because a lot of them have first rounds where you're like, oh, they could maybe come through that. And a lot of them have been having strong grass court seasons as well, like Ryan Peniston, Jack Draper. So yeah, they've built some points already in the grass court season, and then you look at Wimbledon, where if they get through a couple of rounds, it could really propel them higher. But this year it can't, and it is a real shame to be missing ATP points, isn't it? Especially for players like Van Rijthoven that are maybe having a breakout, and also your selection of British players, and there's a lot of them there this year.
Definitely, it is a real shame, and I think it's a shame, obviously, for everyone, but like you said, especially for the lower ranked players, the players who'd really, and as you said, the British players, or the players who would consider themselves grass court specialists, who are really targeting Wimbledon as as their priority, at a place where they think they can get through a couple of rounds, have a decent run, and it really does make a difference. Obviously, the prize money is still there, which is huge, but of course, you want those ranking points. It can make such a big, a big climb up the rankings. It can really have a big impact on your season, and the next year, really. So yeah, to not have the opportunity to win points, it is a real shame. As we've discussed, it will feel a bit strange. I'm sure the tournament will still be fantastic, but it will have a slightly different feel to it in that sense. And it'll be interesting to see, if some players are affected by that, not having the motivation of fighting for ranking points. But I'm sure for the most part, just the incentive of playing at Wimbledon and having the chance to win matches at Wimbledon will be enough, definitely.
Yeah, and with Russian and Belarusian ban removing players like Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev from the men's draw, Karen Khachanov. There's also missing from the men's draw Alexander Zverev and Gael Monfils, who have both had to withdraw with injury. Obviously, we saw that awful ankle roll for Zverev at the French Open. And with both Medvedev and Zverev out, that means for the first time in a long time, we'll be playing without the world number 1 and number 2 at Wimbledon. So although you've still got the big names in there, Djokovic, you've got Rafa playing Wimbledon, which isn't always a guaranteed. It is a shame to be missing players like that from the draw. As well as that, it's the first Wimbledon since 1998 where Roger Federer won't be playing in the main draw, well, at all, really. And I saw people still speculating right up until the draw that maybe Federer makes a comeback, but I think it wasn't happening. It obviously wasn't happening. But more positive news on Federer. He has given an interview fairly recently where he did, because there's been further speculation that, he's coming back for the Laver Cup and Geneva, that they might be goodbye tournaments, but he did say that he is targeting the 2023 season. So, firstly, how much do you miss Federer? And we are going to miss him a lot more at some point in the future. We've just got to accept that. But also, how excited are you to see him back, maybe for more of the tour next year?
Yeah, of course, he's always missed, and always when these legends have a long period out of the game, that you miss them and you really appreciate how great they are and what they do bring when they're around. But yeah, it's fantastic to hear that he is planning to come back and not just play a couple of events, play, as you say, as much as he can. So it's going to be great to see that hopefully next year. Obviously later in the year, I think he's committed already to play the Laver Cup and his home tournament in Basel. So that in itself is going to be great to see. But certainly going into next year, hopefully if the rehab and the recovery all continues to go well, then yeah, very much something to look forward to.
Yeah, I said Geneva rather than Basel, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, the final bit of housekeeping to do before we start to pick through the draw is that for the first time at Wimbledon, because all Grand Slams have agreed this for this year, we will play a 10-point tiebreak at 6-all in the final set. So we had matches come down in length to 12-all and then a tiebreak, and now they've come down even further to 6-all and then a 10-point tiebreak in the final set. We won't have another marathon ever again, like those epics between, was it John Isner and Mahou that played the longest match in Wimbledon history, and there was another one involving Isner as well, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah,
almost broke the record.
Yeah, Isner against Kevin Anderson in the semis. Yeah,
so we'll never have a marathon matches like that again unless the rule is changed, because I don't think a 10-point tiebreak is going to be played to like 200, 198. Well, I say unfortunately, but it was possibly a needed change, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was good to have a cut-off at some point, and I mean, I personally didn't mind the 12-all tiebreak. I know everyone wasn't a fan of it, because I suppose it is a bit of a strange point to end it. But I didn't mind it. But yeah, I do agree. I think when it starts getting to like the beyond that, especially if it's at the last stages of the tournament, it really does hamper the winner's chance of actually, competing in the next round, as we did see that time with Anderson being Isner, didn't really have any chance in the final physically. And also with the early round match, which Isner won, I mean, you could barely move in the next round because the match was played over 3 days. So I think it is good to have that tiebreak at some stage on grass where it is sometimes difficult to get breaks of serves between players like that. But so having it at 6-all, the 10-point tiebreak, yeah, I don't mind it. It'll be interesting to see how it goes this year.
The interesting thing I think about it is Wimbledon has often been seen as the slam that stays closest to tradition. Like, it's the last to change on anything, and that's why we've still got players having to wear all white. And you just wonder if they're finally having room for manoeuvre with the middle Sundays as well. And, issues like, well, first when they brought the final set down from you had to win by 2 clear games to 12-all and then a tiebreak, and now to 6-all and then a 10-point tiebreak. I think it's really interesting, and it's like, at some point, are we going to see colourful kits at Wimbledon mainly? I'd like some traditions to stay. I do like that about Wimbledon, that it is kind of, even in the modern day, it is a look into the history of tennis, still played on grass, the original surface of the sport, players wearing all white, like the original colour scheme of the sport. So, I think there had to be room for manoeuvre on some traditions, but also I do like but Wimbledon still feels very historic. So I think we'll end that discussion there, and we will move into the draw. So starting with your quarterfinalists between the winners of Section 1 and Section 2. I should actually probably share my screen so everyone can see this, shouldn't I? So I'll share the right screen. There we go. Can you see that now, Ewan?
Yeah, I can see that. So yeah, in that top section, I've gone for the top quarter. I've gone for a quarterfinal between Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, who are the 2 highest seeds there. And with Djokovic, I didn't have any problems picking him there. Really, I do think he's got quite a favourable draw. Not that I think having a tricky player in the early rounds would stop him necessarily at Wimbledon, but I don't really see anyone who's going to be particularly dangerous to him there. I mean, Kekmanovic plays had a really good year, but hasn't had much success on the grass. I don't think it's his best surface. Pelka, you'd probably say the same, despite the fact he's got a big serve, hasn't really had many good results on the grass at senior level. At least has won the junior event at Wimbledon. But interestingly, Van Rijthoven, who we've mentioned in there, is a player who I think's got a good opportunity because of that good first round draw on Delbonis. And then I wouldn't put it past him to maybe upset a Pelka if we saw something close to the type of tennis we saw him produce in that title run on home soil. I think he's got a good chance here, maybe making the 4th round. I mean, Basilashvili, who I didn't mention, not the most comfortable on grass, an inconsistent player anyways, has got a tough one. And Lucas Rosol, who's actually come through qualifying, obviously we know has had some success at Wimbledon. So I think there's an opportunity there for Van Rijthoven to potentially even get through to the last 16 and meet Djokovic, where I would have Djokovic to come through. But it's an interesting one. I do think it's probably between Van Rijthoven, Pelka, and I would say maybe even Rosol. I'm not expecting much from Basilashvili here, so it'll be an interesting one in that bottom section of the top section there. But Djokovic clearly the favourite. And on Alcaraz, I don't think he's got an easy draw. With Struff in the first round, a dangerous player. Certainly has the tools to do well on grass, but doesn't actually have a great record. Hasn't had a good year. So I do think Alcaraz, despite his lack of experience on grass, not playing on grass this year, I could see him coming through there to the 4th round. At least Otter and Gojovcik in there, the 2 Germans, are actually quite dangerous on the grass, but I think he'll be okay there, Alcaraz. And the top half of that little section is a really interesting one with Jannik Sinner, Wawrinka in the first round. That could really go either way. I think neither of them are the most comfortable on grass, but it could be a really interesting match. And of course, we've got Andy Murray, who, as we've talked about, made the final in Stuttgart after his semi-final run at the Surbiton Challenger. Really showed some good form on the grass. Just a bit of a shame about the injury concern with in his abdominal he picked up in that final loss to Berrettini, where he was having a fantastic week. Hopefully it did force him to pull out of Queens, but hopefully he's got over that. But still, maybe a bit of a question mark over Murray. But I'd back him to beat Duckworth, probably John Isner, and then the winner of Sinner Wawrinka. I do think he's got a good chance of coming through there. And then I would just give Alcaraz the slight edge in that a potential fourth round, but it is an interesting one. I do think that it's not the worst draw Murray could have had early on. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'll just go with Alcaraz, given the slight question marks over Murray.
You know what? It's weird. Well, it's not really weird. My notes here echo a lot of what you've already said. So Djokovic, I think Djokovic has had a really nice draw here. You look at the players in there. Kekmanovic is having a good year, but he's never really had a big breakthrough on grass. It's probably his worst surface right now. Ross Hall has been a decent grass player in the past, and he's come through qualifying here, so built up a bit of form. But as a player, you know, he's probably past his best years now. Basilashvili, he's inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get with him, and I don't think grass is quite his best surface as well. So I was looking at TVR, and I love that his initials are TVR as well. Like I'm very much on the hype train here. TVR was one of my favorite cars when I was growing up. So you look at his draw and you think maybe he could come through and build on that strong performance at Rosmalen. Riley Opelka, he weirdly struggles on grass for a big server, and it's maybe because his serve relies so much on kick as well as speed. It kicks up really high, and it's awkward when it's at shoulder height. Maybe grass neutralizes that kick a little bit and keeps it a bit lower and makes it easier to attack. So I'd have him to beat Opelka right now, and I'd probably have him to beat everyone other than Djokovic in his section. And to be honest, I think against Djokovic, he'd run it very much into a wall and probably losing straight sets. Then I've got Alcaraz to come through section 2 as well, but I am excited about Andy Murray. If that abdominal injury that he sustained pretty much chasing down a lost cause, it looks like in Stuttgart against Berrettini, if he is over that, he's moving a lot better right now. He's playing a lot better. He's not looked quite like classic Andy Murray, because that's at another level entirely. But he's looked better, especially in his movement. And Yannick Sinner, he's not really that comfortable on the grass yet, or he didn't look that very comfortable on the grass last year. John Isner, Andy Murray knows how to deal with big servers on grass. He's beaten, all of them pretty much. He's beat Raonic in a final. He's beaten Jerzy Janowicz, if you remember him. What a play! Well, what a serve that was. So he knows how to deal with those situations. But I do think once again against Alcaraz in the fourth round, there's a little bit of doubt about Alcaraz's game on grass. But those drop shots, if he gets those going, and the drop nice and low, close to the net, and also his ground strokes as well, he's going to be a big problem on grass. The only little doubt is that his serve isn't the most effective yet, but it's also not bad. It's just there's room for improvement there. So I do think he has got the game for grass. It might just be getting more experience on the surface, and if he does click at Wimbledon, I do see him making the quarterfinal against Djokovic. So moving forward into section 3, wonder if there's going to be any differences in his predictions here. I think this is a really open section, actually. And section 4 as well, maybe less open, but also could be some shocks there. So who have you got coming through these 2 sections into a quarterfinal?
Yeah, well, these are 2 very interesting ones. As you said, I think that first section here is, for me, probably the weakest in the draw, I think, because you've got Casper Ruud as the number 3 seed, but we know hasn't really had any results on the grass, isn't ideal for his game. And I do agree. I think it's wide open. When you look at the other seeds, really, Baez and Krenya Busta, you'd say not comfortable on the grass, really, based on, well, Baez relatively new to the tour, and with his best service being clay. Krenya Busta, I don't think he's ever won a match at Wimbledon. Tiafoe there, though, you'd say is comfortable on grass. Has a dangerous game, a big serve, big forehand. It's flat backhand, well suited to the surface, and likes to come forward. So I've actually gone with Tiafoe to come through that top section. I think he's made the 3rd round a couple of times, Wimbledon, including last year. I think both his losses came against Hashanov as well, which isn't a bad loss. And he's lost both his matches in the grass court season so far this year, but one of them was a really tight 3-set of Wawrinka Queens. So not necessarily an indicator that he's not capable here, because I think a really good draw there, you'd say, for the first couple of rounds, and then also a potential 3rd round against Krenya Busta, Bublik or Fucsovics, I would say, or maybe even more likely to get that 3rd round. I'll probably go with Bublik, and I think Tiafoe's capable there. And Ruud just not yeah, we just haven't seen it yet from on the grass. I think, I'm not necessarily saying losing in the first round, but Ugo and Bear, they're dangerous on grass. I think a pretty tough matchup for Ruud with the big serve and being a lefty, finding his backhand, which can be a bit of a weakness. So Humbert, though, really out of form, not having a good season. So tough to call out. But I think Tiafoe to come through that section is the most likely, given his suitability to the surface. And then who would meet in the quarterfinal? I think it would be Hubert Hurkacz. But yeah, this one is a tougher section. I think you've got a few players here who are definitely capable of reaching the quarterfinals. But I'd have to go with Hurkacz based on his results on grass, reaching the Wimbledon semi-finals last year and winning the title in Halle this year really impressively. With good from the quarterfinals onwards, he beating Auger Aliassime, Kyrgios, and Medvedev. Really, really impressive wins there, all again quality grass court opponents and players in general. So yeah, his game with his huge serve, a pretty flat hitter, likes to come to the net. Really well suited to the grass, and I think. Yeah, interesting first round against Davidovich Fokina, but I can see him winning that on the grass. And then Yuri Vesely, definitely dangerous on grass as a potential second round opponent, but I do back Hurkacz to come through that. And then you'd say Mannarino's one to watch out for in the third round is an effective player on grass. Again, flat hitter, really good on the low bouncing surfaces. Did beat Hurkacz in straight sets at the Australian Open, so that's a dangerous one. But with the form he's in, I'd back him to get through there. And then beat, I'd say, probably Cameron Norrie in the fourth round. Not an easy one between Norrie and Dimitrov. Dimitrov did beat him at Queens, but I'll just give Norrie the slight edge here at Wimbledon in best of 5. And I'll have Hurkacz to come through there and be a bit too strong with his serve.
Yeah, I think this is where we have got some differences, although I do definitely think I can see it going the way that you've predicted. So in my section 3, I do have Martin Fucsovics coming through, just because of his strong result at Wimbledon last year. I think quarter-final, I think he looks good along the way. He has maybe had struggles this year. I don't think he's been fully fit as well for a lot of the year. But back at Wimbledon, I'm sure he'll be wanting to build on what he did last year. And it's a very open section with a lot of beatable players in there. Ruud, Baez, like you say, little experience on grass so far, and what we've seen from Ruud on the grass, he hasn't really delivered much on his potential. He looks not quite comfortable on the surface yet. Pablo Carreño, booster, once again, not got past, you are right, he's not got past the first round at Wimbledon, which is weird because he does look like he plays well on hard and clay courts, but it seems like grass courts are just a bit of a blank spot for him at the moment. TFO is definitely dangerous, but yeah, I see Fucsovics possibly coming through that, although it is hard to predict. And you know what, in section 4, this is just an optimistic pick, but I'm going with Cameron Norrie because, like I say, there's a lot of British players in the draw this year and a lot of them in decent form, but, Peniston, who's also in this section, you do see it catching up on him at some point. His rankings still outside the top 100, although rankings can be false when a player's in good form. He hasn't played much on the main tour during his career. So especially against an experienced player like Dimitrov, or even if it's Steve Johnson in there, you see maybe just experience maybe losing it for him. So I'm going to have Cam Norrie to break his duck in never getting past the third round of a Grand Slam into the fourth round. And against Hubert Hurkacz, it's difficult. They're both having a good year. Cam Norrie's taken a couple of results in recent weeks where you thought, come on, Cam, that was very winnable. Whereas Hurkacz, he's won a title this year, so on the grass. So you do look at that and say Hurkacz is probably the favourite. But I think British optimism, I want to see a Brit in the quarterfinal. There's a chance for Andy Murray, I think, but I think there's a bigger chance for Cam Norrie. So I'm gonna give Cam Norrie the quarterfinal against Martin Fucsovics. So different picks there. Although I have a feeling there's going to be similar picks here. Section 5 and section 6. So have you got coming through these two?
Yeah, well, for me, there's only one answer in the top section. That's Matteo Berrettini. I think what we've seen from on the grass, really from 2019 onwards, has been outstanding. I think 4 titles, twice in Stuttgart, twice in Queens, including doing that double this year, Wimbledon final last year. yeah, it's extremely impressive with, the serve he's got, the forehand, the backhand slice, all works so well on grass, just so difficult to break. And yeah, I think it's really quite a good draw from in this section. I think Garin, Huesler, or a lucky loser in the second round, no issues there. And then, potentially you'd say Jensen Brooksby in the third round, but has been on a bit of a bad run. I don't think he's as comfortable away from the hard courts yet. Even we did see him make the final in Newport last year, but hasn't done a lot on the grass so far this year. Kukushkin's someone who actually has been decent at Wimbledon before, so you give him a chance for an upset there. But no, for me, no issues for Berrettini to come through to the fourth round, where I think he would play either Alex de Minaur or Jack Draper, I would say. Draper, he had a great run at the semis in Eastbourne this week, lost out narrowly to Cressy. And yeah, we've seen some good results from him on the grass already, as well as that, reaching the Queen's quarterfinals last year. And in general, has had a great year on the Challenger Tour. So Draper against de Minaur, who's made the semis in Eastbourne this week as well and won it last year. He's a player who's been good on grass. I think that could go either way in the second round. I would maybe give de Minaur just the edge to get through there. Also, you've got Schwartzman, not as much of a factor on grass. Bonacharic on the comeback trail. Wouldn't expect too much from him. I would expect Berrettini to come through either de Minaur or Draper in the fourth round. And then moving into the section below is a really interesting one. I think you've got four names for me who could come through here, from Shapovalov, Bautista Agut, Kyrgios, and Tsitsipas. I'm going to go with Nick Kyrgios to come through, which, yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, can you trust Kyrgios in best of five? Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I've not written Paul Jubb off. That's going to be an interesting first round. I am looking forward to watching that one. But yeah, I've gone with Kyrgios. He's had a really good year when he has played. I think 3 semifinals, also the quarterfinals in Indian Wells, and 2 of those semifinals on the grass in Stuttgart and Halle. Narrowly losing to Hurkacz in the semis in Halle, and also losing to Murray in Stuttgart. So not bad losses by any means. It's just he's played very good tennis. Really, he's been competing well physically. He does look pretty good. Obviously, best of five's another question over that. He has been on a breakdown in recent years, but I could see him coming through, somewhat convincingly to the third round, and I think I would back him to upsets. Well, no, not upset. Sorry, to beat Tsitsipas again. I think it wouldn't be an upset for him to beat Tsitsipas again on grass as he did in Halle. He leads the head-to-head 3-1 overall. Yeah, I just think his serve against Tsitsipas's return, which has been an issue. I would give him the edge there, and to get the fourth round. He has made the quarters at Wimbledon before, and just the form he's in, I think if he can hold it together mentally, I do think he's got a great chance here. And I'll have him to meet probably Bautista Agut in the fourth round. Shapovalov obviously made the semis last year, but I think he's coming in with a 5-match losing streak. Not necessarily a reason to write him off, because we know that doesn't necessarily mean much with Shapovalov. It's very unpredictable, but just hasn't been having a great year. Obviously dangerous on the grass, but I think Bautista Agut, we've touched on at the start, is through the final this week in Mallorca, has had success on the grass, won a title before, could get another today, and has made the semis of Wimbledon. So I'll probably give him the edge to get through the fourth round, but I'll go with Kyrgios to have the edge against him and get through. I mean, that's a match that would be on his racket, one which could frustrate him. He does trail the head-to-head there, but yeah, I think I've got to go with Kyrgios with the form he's in, which could be a dangerous pick. But I'm a believer in the tennis he's playing currently.
And for me, I fully agreed with Berrettini getting through. It kind of speaks for itself, his record on grass, especially in the last couple of years. The form that he's in this year as well, especially when there was some doubts, because he's had his injury struggles this year and he's missed out a lot of tennis coming into the grass court season. But then he just, he just turned up and did what we expect him to do on grass. 2 titles already. I think he comes through. I think it is interesting what you say about Jack Draper, Alex de Minaur. I can definitely see that being a key battle in who makes a fourth round, especially Schwartzman, Bonacharic. Looking at the bottom half, there is a lot of players that are beatable for both de Minaur and Jack Draper with the form, especially that Draper's shown this year. I don't want to count out Zizou Bergs. Obviously, he won Ilkley right in front of me to earn that Wimbledon main draw wild card. And the interesting thing, he said he hasn't played on grass for 5 years since his juniors until think he made the main draw at Rosmalen or something on a wild card and got through a first round match. It may have been a different grass court tournament actually. Made it through a first round match on the main tour, and then went to the Ilkley Challenger. Came through qualifying, so he's already won 7 matches in a row on grass this year. So he could take the whole title for me. I don't know, but it was funny that he hasn't played on grass for 5 years, and then he goes and just wins Ilkley, beating the likes of Alexei Popyrin, Andrei Seppi, and then Jack Sock in the final. But Jack Draper, he's been showing it on the main tour, on the grass court season so far this year. Strong performances, especially at Eastbourne, making the semi-final. So when you look and you think the British players, a lot of them have got nice first rounds, except from Paul Jibb, who's been absolutely stiffed going against Kyrgios. I don't think Draper's first round is as nice as it looks, but it's all an irrelevance for me, this, because no matter who wins from that bottom half of Section 5, it's Berrettini coming through into the quarterfinal. And then Section 6, Paul Jubb wins. No, as much as I'd love it, Paul Jubb doesn't win this. He's being given Kyrgios in the first round of Wimbledon. But the Grand Slam where Kyrgios is probably at his most dangerous. He does well at the Australian Open consistently in front of his home crowd, but he's really effective on grass with that serve, the +1 shots, with the big forehand. Like you say, the matches tend to be on Kyrgios's racket against lower ranked players on grass. It's only when it comes up against maybe Rafa's, Djokovic's, the match isn't on his racket on grass. So I think Kyrgios for the quarterfinal is a possibility, especially his record against Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas really does struggle against Kyrgios. But I might go with Bautista Agut to come through to the semi-final. He's done it before. I think he's having a decent year as well, especially on the grass, making the final of Mallorca, which obviously we'll see later on today. By the time the pod is out, we'll know the result of that. So I might go with Bautista Agut to come through to the quarterfinal to play against Matteo Berrettini. So a little bit of difference there, although similar thoughts. So we'll move into Section 7 and Section 8. Once again, quite open, I think, Section 7. Section 8 as well. There's a favourite there, but it might not be that simple. So just talk us through your thoughts here.
Yeah, well, this is quite an interesting core, I think. And I've gone for Auger Aliassime to get through that Section 7, but I don't think it's straightforward Maxime Cressy, you've talked about in the first round. I think that's one of the tougher unseeded players you could have drawn with his big serve, his serve and volley branded tennis, the confidence he'll be coming in with after Eastbourne, maybe possibly a slight fatigue factor, but yeah, really an impressive player. When you see him executing his game at its best on a surface like this, it's great to watch. There's no one who really does it anymore at the top of the game, so it's good to see him and climbing the rankings and having success. I would back Felix to get through that, but it's an awkward one first up. Definitely, he's a real handful, Cressy, and then I think it would get a bit easier from there. Sock most likely in the second round, as you mentioned, has actually been in some really good form on the grass, reaching that final in Ilkley, coming through qualifying here, has a big game. But I still would back Felix to come through there, and then I'd say to meet Dan Evans in the third round. I think Evans has got a good draw for the first couple of rounds, but again, I think Felix will be too strong with his game, the results he's had on grass. Really, this year, not bad either. Semi-finals in Rosmalen, quarterfinals in Halle, and just well suited with the big serve, the big forehand, and the net game. Yeah, I expect that to continue here. He's obviously made the quarters at Wimbledon last year as well. So, and then in the fourth round could be a more difficult one, which I think it probably would be Taylor Fritz, who again has won Eastbourne, is through the final of it again this week. Obviously has a lot of tools, I think, which can do well on grass with the big serve and just the aggressive game in general. And I don't think he has too bad a draw. Musetti, you look at the first round, I think it could be an interesting one, but haven't really seen a lot from Musetti outside the clay, and particularly on grass. I don't expect him to really trouble Fritz too much there. So I could see Fritz coming through the fourth round. Holger Rune, I'd say the same about, on grass. I wouldn't say it'll be easy for him yet. It might take some more time. Marcos Giron possibly, and Alex Molchan could have a little run there, but I think Fritz would be with the player meet Felix, but I would have to give Felix the edge on grass. And to me, in the quarterfinal, I'm going to go with Rafael Nadal, but I don't think it's the easiest draw. I mean, look, I don't think he's going to have any problems with Cerundolo, even Sam Querrey in the second round. We know he's been a factor at Wimbledon definitely in the past and on the grass, but I don't think he hasn't been at his best really the last couple of years. I can't see that there being too many problems there. Then probably a third round against, you'd say all those players from Sonego down to Gaston could have a chance. I would probably go with Sonego, but he has a difficult first round. Dennis Kudla, who's had some good results on the grass. Whoever it is, and as I said, I'll probably give the edge to Sonego. I think Nadal will definitely be too strong, but the fourth round's where I think it could be more difficult, because for me it would most likely be Marin Cilic, who we know a Wimbledon finalist, 2 times Queen's winner, a very good player on grass, made the Queen's semi-finals this year, but took a bit of a surprise and lost to Krajinovic. But definitely in form, you'd say, after, if you take into account his Roland Garros run of the semis as well, could definitely be a factor here. I mean, has, all the tools on grass, a big serve and power off both sides, pretty flat hitter. It's a potentially difficult match for Nadal, certainly for a fourth round match, but I would still back him to come through it. But yeah, I do think Cilic would get there. I think Van der Zandschulp, who we saw have a really good run to the semis in Queens, is the other player I think could have a chance there, but I would have to go with Cilic and Nadal to be too strong.
I think, I've gone with the same quarterfinal as you here. Felix, I agree. He hasn't got a simple run, starting with Maxime Cressy. Then it's either Zapata Miralles or Jack Sock in the second round. You look at qualifying as a disadvantage, maybe the fact these players aren't kind of ranked to direct entry and stuff, but it's also a chance to build form on grass, and both of them are decent players who you could say maybe have a bit of a false ranking, especially Jack Sock. He has been 8 in the world before, and he's good at the net. Like he can be an absolute artist at the net sometimes, to be honest. I love watching him play. Big serve as well. So awkward players in there. But I do see Felix coming through it. I see the section going with the seeds, actually. Felix meeting Taylor Fritz, and then Felix coming through it. Section 8, and once again, I've gone with Rafa, but skipped well far down there. Once again, I've gone with Rafa, but I see it as a really awkward section for him, because we think to those kind of doldrum years, if you want to call them, for Rafa at Wimbledon, where he took a few weird early exits. A lot of them were to big serving players, and Sam Querrey possibly in the second round, a possible meeting with Dennis Kudla or Alexei Popyrin as well. Lorenzo Sonego, though, I don't think he's got quite as much behind his serve, but he's a good player. So I think that'd actually be the ideal matchup here for Rafa, possibly in the third round. And then a possible fourth round against Marin Cilic. It's not easy at all, but the form that Rafa's been in 2022, I see him coming through it. I think he's got a real determination this year. And, last time he competed at Wimbledon in 2019, made the semi-finals, and it was a competitive 4-set match with Roger Federer in that semi-final. So he seems to be over his problems at Wimbledon when he's played here recently. I think 2018, a strong showing as well, and quite unlucky to lose to Djokovic in that semi-final. So I hope and I think that Rafa's going to come through that section. So that takes us to the quarterfinals, where in your top 2 quarterfinals, you've got Novak Djokovic versus Carlos Alcaraz. I've agreed with you there. And you've also got Tiafoe versus Hurkacz, where I've got, did I have Fucsovics versus, I'm going to have to bring up mine, I forgot. Fucsovics versus Norrie. See, you remember my predictions better than I did. So we'll start with yours. Who do you see meeting in the semi-final between those 2 quarterfinals?
Yeah, I've gone for a Djokovic-Hubert Hurkacz semi-final, and I think Djokovic to play Alcaraz would be an interesting one on the grass. It was one I think I predicted that we'd get at the French Open. It didn't happen, but yeah, they played a fantastic match on the clay in Madrid. So I'll be looking forward to the second meeting, but I would have to go with Djokovic on grass, just given his experience on the surface. But Alcaraz, I think like you touched on before, has a lot of the tools to do well. I think on all surfaces, the aggressive game, the touch at the net, the drop shots, just the sheer power. But as you mentioned, I think just the serve placement is the one area that isn't quite there yet, and that is really important on the grass. I do think Djokovic, definitely the greatest returner on fast courts of all time, I think, would exploit that. Even with the paces Alcaraz can find on his serve, which is the good thing. He does have the power, but the kick serve, which is his best serve, not really as much of a weapon on the grass. So I could see Djokovic, getting enough joy against the Alcaraz return, but also doing damage with his serve, which he does hit his spots extremely well with. Yeah, just his record at Wimbledon in recent years, I couldn't go against it. So I'd have Djokovic to come through. And to meet Hurkacz, I'd have Hurkacz making the semis for the second straight year at Wimbledon. I would give him the edge over Tiafoe in a potential matchup. Would be an interesting one, but again, I think just the serve he's got is just a real handful, of really up there as one of the best first serves, I think I would have to say, in the game right now. Makes him very difficult to stop, and also just the pretty consistent from the baseline, definitely on the backhand side, which is very good on the grass. It's flat and good at the net. Tiafoe dangerous, but I'd have to give Hurkacz a slight edge against him. I think would be just more difficult to break and could have maybe a little bit more joy on the Tiafoe serve.
I think I'm going to have to go with Djokovic for the semi-final as well. Once again, Alcaraz has a lot of the tools to succeed on all surfaces, even grass. The net game as well could be really effective. Like you say, good touch at the net. His drop volleys are nice. His drop shots in general are nice. Power on his ground strokes. He's definitely going to be a factor at Wimbledon going forward, but he's still early into his career, especially on grass courts. And like you say, Djokovic, his return can really exploit the weaknesses that Alcaraz has on his serve right now. So Djokovic comes through that, but I think Djokovic comes through in straight sets until that match, and I think I'm going to give Alcaraz at least a set in that match and finally give Djokovic a little bit of a test. And then, you know what, I've picked a weird quarterfinal here, Mark Fucsovics versus Cam Norrie, and I'm going to put Cam Norrie through into the semi-final. I don't know what, it's just British optimism. Like I say, I'm really feeling there's so many Brits in the draw. Surely at least one of them makes it to the semi-final, a quarter at least. I'm really feeling a strong British performance from someone at Wimbledon this year, and Cam Norrie is the British number one right now. So I do think he's got a fairly nice draw as well. I think he's been put in a section where there's a lot of players that are beatable for him, and then if he did come into a quarterfinal, even against Tiafoe, then I do give him a chance against Tiafoe or Fucsovics. So I'm going to put Cam Norrie into the semi-final to meet Novak Djokovic, but I think that might be where it ends for him. Looking at your other quarterfinals, you've got Matteo Berrettini versus Nick Kyrgios, and then Felix Auger Aliassime versus Rafael Nadal. So who makes the semi-final from those two matchups?
I think they will both be really interesting matches if they did happen, but I'll go with the Berrettini-Nadal semi-final. But the Berrettini-Kyrgios match potentially, I think, would be a really tight match, just given the nature of the two serves. Two of the best in the game, so difficult to break, particularly on the grass. I think that would be interesting. And in the rallies, if Kyrgios could get into rallies, you'd maybe even give him the slight edge, given he's having the better backhand than Berrettini. Both of them have fantastic forehands, but you'd give Berrettini the slight edge in that department. And it's just so difficult to actually get to Berrettini's backhand, particularly on his serve. I do think I'll just have to give him the slight edge there. The record he's got on the grass, the serve, you'd maybe say it's even slightly better than Kyrgios's serve. There's not much in it, but yeah. And again, at that stage of a tournament, I would maybe expect them to be a little bit fresher. Kyrgios maybe could have a tricky run at that stage with the matches over Tsitsipas, Bautista, Agut, Shapovalov in his way, and Berrettini's fitness. I would give him an edge in that department, even coming back from the injury as he has recently. But it looked great in the grass court season, so I'd have to go with Berrettini, and just also the mental toughness we've seen from him in the slams, so consistent. And then Nadal beat Auger Aliassime in a rematch of the French Open match recently, which was a fantastic fourth round match, 5 sets. You'd say on the grass it could be really interesting as well, given what we've seen from Felix, the serve he possesses, and I do think that would be an interesting one. I'd give Felix at least a set there, but I would have to go with Nadal to come through, assuming he is healthy, that the treatment has been a success, which he'd had in between the French Open and Wimbledon. And yeah, as you said, just he's been outstanding this year, really, whenever he's been healthy. Nadal is just, and what we've seen from Wimbledon the last two times he's played in 2018 and 19, breaching the semis, like you touched on, and losing to Federer and Djokovic in close matches. You can't really, he's not been far away at either of those tournaments. So I think we'll see him going deep again here through the semi-finals.
And yeah, I've agreed with your semi-final there. I've got Berrettini, but I've got him to come through Roberto Bautista Agut. I think I've given Berrettini a lot easier a time than you have, because Kyrgios versus Berrettini, that's a match that could go 3, 4, or 5 tie-break sets. You could see both those players struggling to break the other's serve, but I don't see RBA having a look in on Berrettini's serve, and I think there's more chance Berrettini manages to find his way into one of Bautista Agut's service games than he does Kyrgios's service games. So I think mine's a lot more clear-cut than yours there, my quarter-final for Berrettini. So I've got him coming through to the semi and meeting Rafa Nadal, but Felix is going to be a big danger on grass for Rafa. And once again, it is just Rafa's form this year and the determination that he's come out with. I just see him as maybe a little bit too strong. Although you look at the French Open meeting on a surface that you say obviously favoured Rafa, and you think, well, maybe on grass it could go the other way. But chasing the calendar year slam still, and I think he has admitted that he's going for it this year. And like you say, that the form is shown this year in general, winning the Australian Open historically is worst slam probably. Yeah, I see Rafa coming into at least a semi-final at Wimbledon. So your semis, you've got Novak Djokovic versus Hubert Hurkacz, I believe, and Matteo Berrettini versus Rafael Nadal. So what's your final? Is it a repeat of last year's, actually, Djokovic-Berrettini, or have you picked it a different way?
Yeah, I picked it a different way, but it is a repeat of a final we've had in the past between Djokovic and Nadal, which in 2011, I believe I've gone for a repeat of that, and I do think I'm pretty confident on Djokovic and Nadal getting through these two semi-finals. Not that I would say they would be easy, but I would give them both a clear edge. I think Djokovic against Hurkacz hasn't lost to him. Hurkacz is a player who's given him some trouble before, including at Wimbledon. 2019, I think, was a 4-setter. Then they played a 3rd-set tiebreak at the Paris Masters last year, which Djokovic just came through. So Hurkacz is a player who can trouble him, I think, for the similar reasons to Daniil Medvedev, with the big serve, the flat ground strokes generally being quite difficult to hit through, but not quite as effective as Medvedev. On grass, though, Hurkacz definitely dangerous, difficult to break, but I think Djokovic will find enough of a way to break his serve often enough, and also be tough to break himself. And once they get into the rallies, I think there's generally only going to be one winner there, particularly with the forehand. So I'd have to give Djokovic the edge there. I'd say maybe in 4 sets. I think Hurkacz could potentially win a set, and then Nadal to beat Berrettini. Has won both the previous matches, which were both in Grand Slams. One of them, the Australian Open semi-final this year, so it would be a repeat of that. And then also the US Open semi-final in 2019, which was in straight sets. And I do think, as much as Berrettini is pretty ruthless at beating players lower ranked than him and everyone else, he does sometimes struggle against the very elite, particularly Nadal and Djokovic, who's never beaten. And I think part of that is just the one slight hole in his game being his topspin backhand can get exposed against the likes of Nadal and Djokovic. Not many players can really trouble it, but just how great returners they are, and once again the points they can find that side, particularly having a fantastic shot with Nadal being his forehand, Djokovic being his backhand. They can, with the cross-court rally there, it is an issue for Berrettini. And I think he's lost his last 10 matches against top 10 players, which shows that he can just struggle against the very best. So I would have to go with Nadal there for those reasons. But again, Berrettini on the grass could really be, it'll take a tough performance to beat him again. But I think Nadal's capable, given what we've seen from him this year.
And for me, yeah, Djokovic comes through. Cam Norrie for me. I think that'd end up being straight sets, actually. I think I've given Djokovic a very nice semi-final there. Cam Norrie, if you think of his game, he makes a lot of balls. He'll keep getting the balls back over and making you hit another shot. But his game maybe isn't aggressive enough to test Djokovic. I think Djokovic would eat that kind of style of play alive, really. I think if you just keep putting the ball back over net against Djokovic, he'll just go toe-to-toe for you until he sees an opportunity with like a down-the-line backhand or something and eventually pick you off. So I don't see Cam Norrie laying much of a finger on Novak Djokovic if that turned out to be a semi-final. Berrettini versus Rafa. I think Berrettini could be awkward for Rafa, as you've mentioned. Rafa won both the 2 previous matches, and Berrettini's backhand. I mean, Berrettini knows it still needs a lot of work. He's actually joked about it himself in the past. So, we think the best of the best have got the tools to expose that. You can really see Rafa starting to hit like his forehand cross court into Berrettini's backhand, especially, with the lefty as well. I think that's going to be a problem for Berrettini. So I am going to have the same final as you. I think I'm going to have Rafa. And I think also Felix is going to be, if that's a quarterfinal, that's perfect preparation to then play against Berrettini in the semi-final, another player that's got a big serve, a lot behind the serve. So I think that'll be perfect preparation for a semi-final against Berrettini, which I see Rafa winning again. So Djokovic versus Rafa, we've both got it. That is an absolute dream final for me. I'd love to see this. Djokovic in his first Slam final of the year as well, if it happens. So how do you see that one panning out? Does Rafa have the game this year to test Djokovic on grass?
Yeah, he definitely has the game to test him, but I have gone with Djokovic to win. But I don't think it would be straightforward, and I agree it would be the dream final for me. It's what I would want to see, and not with any disrespect to any other players. I think there's a number of finals which would be fantastic, but yeah, to see those two meet again in the Wimbledon final, which we've only seen once, as I mentioned, 11 years ago. I think it would be great to see that at least one more time before they retire, and it's got the potential to be an epic, really. I mean, but I would go with Djokovic. Just at Wimbledon on the grass, I would still have to give him the slight edge with the speed of the surface, the low bounce, how difficult, how well he serves, just such a much improved serve really in recent years. And it's not an easy one to call. I mean, that he did win, I think the head-to-head's 2-2 on grass, but Nadal's 2 wins, I think, coming in 2007 and 8, which you'd say he was just a better player than Djokovic at that point. When they've kind of been at a similar level in 2011 and 2018, Djokovic did have the edge, not easily, in 4 sets and that 5-set semi-final in 2018, which was a fantastic match. I would have to go with him again. I just think, I mean, he's been the player beat at this tournament really for some time. Hasn't lost since 2017 at Wimbledon, and has won 4 out of the last 6, I think, going back to 2014. So he just really has been so difficult to beat here. Nadal, I do think he's close, and with what we've seen from this year, the aggressive brand of tennis also he's played in recent years with Carlos Moya definitely it's going to serve him well on the grass. But I would just have to go with Djokovic. It's a tough one though. It's tough. I mean, because I think in a way there's more pressure on Djokovic really at this event. He needs this more in the Grand Slam race. Nadal is almost a free hit for him. Obviously, he's got the pressure of the Grand Slam, but I think if you offered him the Australian Open and the French Open this year, the Australian certainly you wouldn't have expected him to win. So yeah, more pressure on Djokovic, but I'm going to go with him just to handle that and win. I'll say in 5 sets, but yeah, very much looking forward to that if it does happen.
I agree, but as much as Rafa's chasing the calendar year slam this year, the pressure is on Djokovic, because if Rafa doesn't get the calendar year slam, he's still overperformed on expectations this year. But I do think Djokovic is the man who, the old saying, pressure makes diamonds. That applies to him more than anybody. He loves high pressure situations. And I think after all the heartbreak for him this year, the quarterfinal against Rafa at the French Open, not even being able to play his best slam at the Australian Open. And if you look at his record at Wimbledon the last 10 years or so, as much as we say that Wimbledon is Roger's slam historically, Djokovic, I think 6 titles since 2011 when he got his first. That's a really short period of time to pick up six Wimbledon titles. He has been the dominant player at Wimbledon. in recent history. You know, you could even see him chasing down Fed's record at Wimbledon eventually, which I'd hate to see. I love it that they've all got their own one slam where they're dominant. But it could happen, and I do see him maybe picking up Wimbledon this year. I think Rafa takes it close. I'm calling it now. I think that could be a 5-set final. As you say, Rafa's game has got more aggressive recently, which is well suited to the grass, and we've seen him improve massively. Well, not improve, but get back to his best maybe on grass from back towards the young Rafa. But young Rafa was a very different style of player to the Rafa that's playing now. Back then he was just a raw, chase down every ball, played at an incredible intensity, aggressive on his forehand side, but he's more aggressive now, maybe behind his serve, even on his backhand side, he's improved massively. So he's a different player now, and it's translated well at Wimbledon in 2018 and 2019. He's took Djokovic close, he took Federer relatively close in 4 sets. So I do see him making it difficult, but I also see Djokovic coming through it and taking Wimbledon yet again. So we've both ended up with the same conclusion there, despite some differences through the picks. But I think we can both agree that we're really looking forward to seeing how it pans out this year. As much as it's a shame there's no ranking points, I think as we've got closer, it's just become, I don't know if you agree, but it's just felt more like it's Wimbledon. We're coming into Wimbledon. It's the greatest tournament in tennis history. And as it turned out, not many players pulled out because of the ranking point situation. So we've still got a very, very strong draw. So, I mean, do you agree as your kind of disappointment at the lack of ranking points and the removal of Medvedev from the draw kind of wore off a little bit as we've got closer to the tournament?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think, like you touched on that, when you look at it, it's still a really strong draw. Only, missing a few banned players, it is a shame. Some of them could have been a factor, but definitely, I think, you know, it still looks like it has the potential to be a fantastic tournament. And yeah, very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be, you know, potentially another great Grand Slam, which to add to the 2 we've already had this year.
And I agree, and I think that's a good place to end it. We're both absolutely looking forward to the tournament. We'll be back to give you the women's predictions, which should be out a day after this goes out, ahead of the start of play on the Monday. So look out for that. And we also look forward to reviewing it in a couple of weeks' time. We're sure there's going to be some amazing talking points along the way. So thank you very much for listening, and see you soon.